Please pray with me. Gracious God, may the meditations of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be a pleasing offering to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. When we talk about the Trinity, which today is Trinity Sunday, I think one of the things that it reminds me of is this little thing, this meme you hear about in the news and on the internet and on some news outlets about the new math. How many of you have heard of the new math? How many of you have heard criticisms of the new math? Yes. And it kind of makes me think of that when we talk about the Trinity, because it's like your teacher is telling you, now kids, you might think that 1 plus 1 plus 1 is going to be 3, but oh no, it's actually going to be 1. It does kind of have that feel to it, doesn't it, when we talk about the Trinity? I remember, as a child, this being explained with a bunch of different metaphors, and then as I got older, I thought, but wait a minute, those metaphors have serious problems. Like the egg, the yolk, the white, and the shell. Well, but they're not, you can separate those things out, can't you? And chefs do that, cooks do that all the time. So that doesn't really work very well, and if you just have the egg white, you don't have the whole egg, right? Nobody is excited when they eat an omelet of egg whites because it's missing all the tasty parts of the egg. Other one I heard was the one about water. Oh, water is liquid, it's solid as ice, or it's gas as steam. Well, yes, okay, but that doesn't really work either, does it? Because those are very distinct states in nature, but they don't really, there's no oneness really there. So what is it we are doing when we talk about this Trinity? Is this just some mental gymnastics that we are playing with ourselves to try to make it work? Now, because the narrative lectionary has come to an end for the year and won't pick up again until September, we are back to using the Revised Common Lectionary. So that's why we have 3 readings and a psalm this morning. The first reading is from Isaiah, and we read about his call story. And as I was rereading the text this morning, I realized, Chris, why didn't you use the song, Here I Am, Lord, today? Because that one comes right from this passage, doesn't it? And I thought, well, maybe next time. Maybe next Trinity Sunday. The second reading is from Romans, Paul's letter to the Romans. And our third reading is Jesus' conversation with the Jewish leader Nicodemus. So those are the 3 texts that we have. As I was reading through them, I was thinking about some of those commonalities that these texts have with each other. The first one that I think stands out the most is how the Spirit of God totally permeates all 3 readings. In the Hebrew Bible reading, the call of Isaiah, we see the Spirit of God totally overwhelm Isaiah. And so overwhelm his experience and his senses that he has this incredibly powerful and life-changing vision. In the reading from Romans, we have talk about how the Spirit, in its power, has adopted us as children of God, has taken us out of where we were and put us into a new place altogether, changed our identity, made us someone new. And in John 3, that theme is also picked up, where Jesus talks about the Spirit birthing us anew. Birth by the water, and then the second birth by Spirit. So all 3 texts, the Spirit is a major figure in them. The other thing that I noticed about these 3 readings is that vocation is important to all of them. It's very obvious in the first reading, right? When we have the prophet being called to be a prophet. In the second reading, it's not quite as sharp, but it's there, because the letter informs us that we are called to live as God's children, not in the ways of the world, but in the ways of the Spirit. And of course, the Gospel of John says that we are called by the Spirit to be born anew. The other feature that I think connects all three readings is the importance of relationships. We see God establishing a relationship with Isaiah because of God's prior relationship with Israel. We see in the letter Paul is writing to the Roman church to establish a relationship with a church that he hasn't visited before. Most of Paul's letters are to churches that he founded. That is not the case with Romans. This is a church he did not found and has never visited before. And so it's kind of his introduction to establish a relationship. And of course, he is going there on behalf of Christ, whom they all have a relationship with. And the gospel reading is all about relationships with God that lead to salvation. So what does this have to do with the doctrine of the Trinity? Now, there's a little background that's important to keep in mind when we talk about the doctrine of the Trinity. I think that you really can see in it, you have the early church struggling to figure out, well, who is Jesus in regards to the God of Israel? How do these two fit together? And on top of that, we have this experience of the Holy Spirit. Well, where does the Spirit fit into this? Now, the rules of Judaism and the rules of the emerging Christianity required that you only worship one and only one God. So how does that work? When we see in our experience, we have God, the God of the Hebrew Bible, the God that is present in Jesus Christ, and the God that is now present with us in the Holy Spirit. We experience God in creation. We experience God in the person of Jesus Christ. And we experience God in the continuing presence of the Holy Spirit. What do we do with that? How do we make sense of that? All in the context of having only one God. And after, a few centuries of hammering things out and arguing and debating, eventually the church came out with the formula that we still use today. One substance and three persons. And I love how many churches, good morning, welcome. I love how many churches just put that on their website. We believe in the Trinity, one substance, three persons. No explanation. And of course they do that because they don't really know how they're going to explain that. That's why they say it. They know they're supposed to use those words, and so they do, but they don't really have a way to explain them. So what does that mean? One substance and three persons. I might as well say it in Latin because that probably means just as much to you. Una substantia tres personae. That probably means just as much to you as that phrase in English does. What are we talking about? And that brings us to something that I find very helpful for understanding the Trinity. And namely, it is what's called the Social Trinity. Now, the Social Trinity is very important to our Eastern Orthodox brothers and sisters in the faith. And a number of Protestant and Catholic contemporary theologians have also utilized it in their work. The basic premise of the Social Trinity is that God is not a being per se. Rather, God is a movement. God is a set of actions. The church fathers used this word perichoresis, which literally means interpenetration, to say that the three persons of the Trinity inhabit each other. They intertwine with each other. They penetrate each other. So in a word, what the Social Trinity says about God is that first and foremost, to think about God in terms of substance or a person or a thing even, is missing something important. Namely, God is first and foremost a relationship. God is the sacred relationship that bonds the three persons of the Trinity together. One relationship, three persons. And that I found very helpful to make sense of this. Because once you understand that God is a relationship and not a person or a thing, okay, so God is really the sets of actions that these three persons participating together in their acts of love and redemption, creation, restoration. These are the actions that unite the three persons together. Jürgen Moltmann, the German theologian, talked about it explicitly, how he said, in the Christ event, the three persons of the Trinity are drawn together. Christ is the God who dies for us, the Father is the God whose power raises Christ from the dead, and the Holy Spirit is revealed to us on Pentecost that empowers us for mission and ministry in this world. God is a relationship that ties those things together. And that's how we can have three in one. Three persons, but one relationship. Well, that's fine, Chris. That's maybe a little interesting to you. But what does this really mean for us when we talk about God? Well, it means that God is first and foremost a connectedness between beings, a matrix, if you will, that ties all these things together, a fabric woven that binds. God is truly love. Internally, that means it's a bond of love that unites Creator, Christ, and Holy Spirit. Externally, when we say God is love, we mean the mission of love that reaches out farther and farther, eventually to encompass all of creation. We see when we talk about God as triune that there is a motion in God of call and send. Call and send. And that mirrors our behavior, doesn't it, as the people of God? Because we are called by God, and then we are sent out by God. A theologian that has been influential to me, her name is Carter Hayward, and she's no relation to me, but I do jokingly refer to her as Aunt Carter. In her writing, she talks about how she understands God, really kind of in the same regards as a relationship, but she says that what God is a verb. To God, she says. And we, as the people of God, as the followers of Jesus Christ, are called to God as well. We are called to work for justice. We are called to act in love. We are called to live out our lives as modeled to us by the Holy Trinity. Just as the Trinity is a bond of love that unites others, we are called to live in a bond of love with each other. Just as the Trinity's love is constantly overflowing beyond its boundaries into and further out into the world, we are called to expand our own love further and further out. So in that sense, Trinity is not some arcane or abstract intellectual notion. It is really an ethical lesson for us. As God is, so are we to be in this world. God is a loving relationship, and we are called to a loving relationship. A number of years ago, I officiated at the wedding of my younger brother, Dan, and his soon-to-be wife, Sarah. Now, you know she's my sister-in-law, so I do have to mess with her a little bit from time to time. And she wanted to know ahead of time. She's like, Chris, what are you going to preach on? And I was like, oh, Sarah, I'm going to preach on the doctrine of the Trinity. And she turned her voice into this, you better not. Well, I was preaching on the Trinity. And as soon as I started my sermon, I watched her eyes open so widely. Oh no, he's going to do it after all. But afterwards, she said, Chris, you did a great job. Thank you. And in fact, because I talked about the relationship that is God, how God is this bond of love that unites unity and diversity together into one. and how we as the church are called to live diversity in unity. And guess what's a perfect icon of the Trinity on that particular incident? Marriage itself. What else could you say about but unity in diversity? That's what that's about. And so that is a perfect thing to talk about at a wedding. Because as God, as a communal being bound in love, so we are communal beings bound in love. As God is a community that acts for love and justice in the world, we are a community that acts for love and justice in the world. Just as my Aunt Carter says, we are called to God. We are called to act as God does in this world. Judaism has a particular mystical tradition called Kabbalah. And in their interpretation of the world, they say that our human vocation is to tikkun ha'olam, which means to mend the world. I think that is a powerful image for our vocation. It is what the Trinity is striving to do in this world, and it is what we as people of faith, as the church, are called to do in this world. To mend it, to heal it, to bring it back together. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you, but it doesn't take very long out walking around outside or watching the TV or looking at Facebook or something on the internet, but to realize just how much mending our world needs desperately. We are standing on a precipice, people. And the only way that we can come back from that is through the love and healing that the Trinity brings through us to this world. So as we go out this week, carry with us, let us carry with us, the understanding that God, as a relationship of love bound together, is a model for us. We are brought into God so that we might be sent out from God into the world. We are called with a mission of love, justice, and reconciliation, and we are sent to be the hands, heart, and feet of God in this world. Amen.